The year is 1975. Inside a packed hearing room on Capitol Hill, Senator Frank Church of Idaho lifts a pistol from the evidence table and holds it in front of the cameras. It looks almost ordinary. A modified handgun with a telescopic sight mounted on top and a battery fitted inside the grip, the kind of thing you might walk past in an evidence locker without a second glance. But this is not an ordinary weapon. This pistol fires no bullets. It makes almost no sound. It uses electricity to launch a frozen dart thinner than a human hair, a quarter of an inch long, into a target up to 100 yards away. On impact, the victim feels nothing more than a mosquito bite, or sometimes nothing at all. The dart dissolves instantly inside the body. The frozen toxin melts into the bloodstream. Within minutes, the target's heart stops. A standard autopsy finds nothing. No bullet, no wound, no foreign substance. Just a middle-aged man who appeared to suffer a sudden fatal heart attack. Senator Church turns to the cameras and calls it what it is, a murder instrument, he says. That's about as efficient as you can get. The CIA director sitting at the witness table does not deny any of it. If you're fascinated by the hidden stories of Cold War espionage and the extreme measures intelligence agencies took during the most dangerous period in modern history, make sure to hit that subscribe button and like this video. Your support helps us bring more of these incredible historical accounts to light. To understand why the CIA built a weapon this terrifying, you need to understand what was happening inside the intelligence world in the late 1950s. Both sides were killing people, and neither side wanted anyone to know. On October 12, 1957, a Ukrainian exile named Lev Rebet was climbing the stairs to his office at Karlsplatz 8 in Munich. It was morning. The hallway was quiet. A young man approached him on the staircase, raised his hand, and fired a burst of invisible mist directly into Rebet's face. Rebet collapsed on the staircase and died within seconds. A cleaning woman found his body at 10:40 that morning. German doctors examined him. Their conclusion was unremarkable: sudden cardiac arrest, natural causes. The 45-year-old had simply suffered a heart attack on the stairs. No one suspected murder because there was nothing to suspect. The young man who killed him was a 25-year-old KGB operative named Bohdan Stashinsky. The weapon he used was a specially designed spray gun built in secret KGB laboratories in Moscow, a compact aluminum cylinder that crushed a capsule of hydrogen cyanide and sprayed the gas as a fine mist into the victim's face. The cyanide induced immediate cardiac arrest. It left no marks, no wounds, no chemical traces that a coroner in 1957 would think to look for. The Soviets had invented the perfect assassination weapon. 2 years later, on October 15, 1959, Stashinsky used an improved version of the same weapon to kill his second target. Stepan Bandera, the leader of the Ukrainian nationalist resistance, was returning to his apartment at Kreitmayerstrasse 7 in Munich. His bodyguard was not with him that day. Stashinsky followed him into the building, waited until Bandera was fumbling with his keys, and fired the cyanide mist into his face. Bandera collapsed in the stairwell. His neighbors found him gasping for breath. He died minutes later on the way to the hospital. This time, the autopsy revealed something unexpected. The pathologist detected cyanide poisoning, but without a suspect or a weapon, Munich police could not explain how the poison had been administered. The case went cold. Moscow awarded Stashinsky the Order of the Red Banner for his work. I want you to understand the significance of what happened next, because it changed the trajectory of American intelligence operations for a decade. In August 1961, Stashinsky defected. His German wife, Inga Pohl, had discovered what her husband actually did for a living and begged him to confess. On August 12, 1961, just days before the Berlin Wall went up, Stashinsky walked into a police station in West Berlin and told officers he was a KGB assassin who had murdered 2 men with a poison spray gun. Nobody believed him. The CIA interrogated Stashinsky for 3 weeks and concluded he was useless. They did not even know that Rebet had been murdered. As far as Western intelligence was concerned, Rebet had died of natural causes. Stashinsky's claim that he had killed a man with an invisible gas and gotten away with it sounded like the delusion of a low-level operative trying to inflate his importance. The Americans handed him over to the West German police. The Germans were skeptical too, but they took Stashinsky to the two murder sites and had him reenact the killings. Detail by detail, his account held up. The weapon was real, the technique was real, and the KGB had been using it for years. Stashinsky stood trial in October 1962. The West German federal court found him guilty, but gave him a comparatively mild sentence of 8 years, ruling that KGB chairman Alexander Shelepin and Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev bore primary responsibility for ordering the assassinations. Stashinsky served most of his sentence and was released, but the damage was done. The intelligence world now knew that the Soviets had perfected a method of killing people in broad daylight, in public, and making it look like a heart attack. The implications rippled through Western intelligence services. If the KGB could spray cyanide gas into a man's face on a Munich staircase and have German doctors rule it natural causes, how many other deaths had been misattributed? How many exiles, defectors, and dissidents had died of seemingly natural heart attacks in cities across Western Europe? And how many of those deaths had actually been assassinations? The CIA had dismissed Stashinsky as a fraud. They had failed to detect either murder. They had spent 3 weeks interrogating a man who had killed twice with an invisible weapon and concluded he was lying. That failure stung, and it created urgency. The CIA wanted its own version, something better, something the Soviets could not match. In a laboratory at Fort Detrick, Maryland, the research had actually been underway for years. Fort Detrick was an Army base dedicated to biological warfare research since World War II. Since at least May 1952, the CIA had maintained a joint program with the Army's Special Operations Division there, developing chemical and biological agents for covert use. The program operated under the codename MK Naomi. MK Naomi's stated mission was the stockpiling of severely incapacitating and lethal materials for the specific use of the Technical Services Division. The Technical Services Division was the CIA's gadget shop. They built the hidden cameras, the listening devices, the forged documents, and the disguises that field agents relied on. Now they wanted weapons that could kill without leaving evidence. MK Naomi was a successor to the far more infamous MK Ultra program, which had been conducting mind control experiments on unwitting American and Canadian citizens since 1953. While MK Ultra focused on interrogation techniques, psychological manipulation, and the effects of drugs like LSD on human subjects, MK Naomi had a more direct purpose. It was the weapons program. Its researchers explored everything from crop destruction agents to livestock poisons to compounds that could incapacitate or kill a single human target without detection. The program was not small. Fort Detrick's Special Operations Division maintained laboratories, testing facilities, and storage units dedicated entirely to developing agents for CIA field operations. Some of these agents were designed to paralyze guard dogs quickly enough to prevent them from barking during covert entry operations. Others were designed for human targets. The dart guns came in multiple forms. Some looked like pistols, others were disguised as canes, fountain pens, or umbrellas. The woman who found what they were looking for was named Mary Embry. Embry joined the CIA straight out of high school in the early 1960s. She was 18 years old. She started as a secretary in the Audio Surveillance Division, building hidden listening devices and creating small electronics for field operations. She was good at it, good enough that the agency promoted her to the Office of Technical Services and gave her a new assignment: find a poison that cannot be detected by autopsy. That was the entire brief. No further context, no explanation of what the poison would be used for. The CIA operated on a strict need-to-know basis, and Embry needed to know only one thing: find an undetectable toxin. She found saxitoxin. Saxitoxin is a neurotoxin produced by certain species of algae. It accumulates naturally in shellfish, specifically in mussels, clams, and oysters that feed on toxic algae blooms. It is one of the most potent natural poisons known to science. A lethal dose for a human being is estimated at roughly 0.5 milligrams. To put that in perspective, that is 1,000th the weight of a single aspirin tablet. Saxitoxin kills by blocking the movement of sodium ions across nerve cell membranes. When sodium channels shut down, nerve impulses stop transmitting. The victim first experiences tingling in the lips and fingers, then full-body paralysis sets in. The diaphragm stops working. The heart stops. Death can occur in minutes, and here is what made saxitoxin perfect for the CIA's purposes. Once it enters the bloodstream and does its work, the toxin breaks down rapidly. It denatures. By the time a pathologist examines the body, the chemical evidence has already disappeared, unless the coroner specifically knows to test for saxitoxin, which in the 1960s virtually no one would. The death looks entirely natural. I find this particular detail remarkable because the CIA was not simply looking for a way to kill people. They already had dozens of ways to kill people. What they wanted was a way to kill people and have the world believe it never happened. Plausible deniability. That was the doctrine that drove everything. But Embry had found the poison. Now the CIA needed a delivery system. Dr. Nathan Gordon, a CIA chemist working at Fort Detrick, discovered that mixing saxitoxin with water and freezing the solution created a tiny projectile, a frozen dart approximately the width of a human hair and 1/4 of an inch long. The dart was small enough to penetrate clothing. It was solid enough to be propelled by a mechanical launcher, and upon entering the body, it dissolved instantly, releasing the toxin directly into the bloodstream. The delivery device was built around a modified handgun frame. A battery was fitted inside the grip. An electrical mechanism replaced the conventional firing system. A telescopic sight was mounted on top for accuracy at distance. The weapon could fire the frozen dart silently, with almost no recoil, at targets up to 100 yards away. The CIA's internal documentation referred to this weapon with a name so deliberately obscure that it almost sounds like a parody. They called it the non-discernible microbionoculator, but everyone else would come to know it as the heart attack gun. Years later, Embry claimed in an interview that the weapon had been tested on animals and on prisoners. She did not elaborate on which prisoners, or where, or what happened to them. Now, here is where the story takes a turn that the CIA did not expect. On November 25, 1969, President Richard Nixon stood before reporters and announced that the United States would unilaterally renounce the use of biological weapons. The executive order was broad. All existing stockpiles of biological and chemical agents were to be destroyed. All offensive biological weapons research was to cease. The order applied directly to the CIA's toxin stockpiles, including every microgram of saxitoxin that Fort Detrick had produced. But the CIA did not comply. Dr. Nathan Gordon, the same chemist who had developed the frozen dart delivery system, later claimed that he never received the destruction order. Others within the agency said the decision to retain the toxins was deliberate. Officers who believed in the program's value simply chose to hide the stockpiles rather than destroy them. What they hid was staggering. Congressional investigators would later discover that 11 grams of weaponized saxitoxin had been stored at CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia. 11 grams does not sound like much, but at 0.5 milligrams per lethal dose, 11 grams of saxitoxin represented approximately 5,000 lethal doses, enough to kill every man, woman, and child in a small town. Alongside the saxitoxin, the investigators found vials of cobra venom stored in the same facility. All of this had been retained in direct violation of a presidential order for 6 years. But here is the thing that really unsettled Congress. Nobody could explain exactly who had authorized the retention. Nobody could identify who knew about the hidden stockpiles and who did not. The chain of command had become so compartmentalized, so layered in secrecy and plausible deniability, that it was impossible to determine where responsibility began and where it ended. The CIA had built a weapon designed to kill without accountability, and now the agency itself had become an organization that operated without accountability. That contradiction is what brought Senator Frank Church to Washington. The Church Committee, formerly known as the United States Senate Select Committee to Study Governmental Operations with Respect to Intelligence Activities, was created on January 27, 1975 by a Senate vote of 82 to 4. The investigation was triggered by a cascade of revelations. In January 1970, Army intelligence officer Christopher Pyle exposed the U.S. Army's domestic spying on civilian political organizations. Then, on December 22, 1974, investigative journalist Seymour Hersh published a massive article in the New York Times detailing decades of illegal CIA operations. Covert assassination programs, domestic surveillance, mail interception, drug experiments on unwitting American citizens. The article described a collection of internal CIA documents that agency insiders had nicknamed the Family Jewels. The Family Jewels cataloged the most sensitive and legally questionable operations the CIA had conducted since its founding. When Church's committee began pulling at those threads, the heart attack gun was only one of many disturbing discoveries. The committee uncovered CIA assassination plots targeting at least 5 foreign leaders. Fidel Castro of Cuba had survived numerous attempts, Patrice Lumumba of the Congo, Rafael Trujillo of the Dominican Republic, and General René Schneider of Chile had all been targeted. South Vietnamese President Ngo Dinh Diem was on the list as well. The methods ranged from elaborate to absurd. Against Castro alone, the CIA had explored exploding cigars, poisoned wetsuits, mafia hit contracts arranged through Las Vegas intermediaries, and biological agents designed to make his beard fall out. The heart attack gun was the most sophisticated and arguably the most terrifying weapon in the entire arsenal. On September 16, 1975, CIA Director William Colby was called to testify before the Church Committee. He brought the heart attack gun with him. I want you to picture this scene because it is one of the most extraordinary moments in the history of American governance. The director of the Central Intelligence Agency is sitting at a witness table in a Senate hearing room. Television cameras are broadcasting live, and he is holding a weapon that was designed to assassinate people and make their deaths look natural. Colby described the weapon in clinical language. He explained how it worked. He confirmed the toxin stockpiles. He acknowledged that the presidential order to destroy them had not been followed. But when senators asked whether the heart attack gun had ever actually been used against a human target, Colby's answer was careful. He stated that the agency was aware of one operation for which the toxin had been prepared, but that the operation was not in fact completed. He would not say more. To this day, no one outside the classified archives of the CIA knows whether the heart attack gun was ever used. How many people may have died from a frozen dart of saxitoxin that dissolved on impact, or whether any deaths attributed to natural heart attacks were actually assassinations. That is the entire point of the weapon. If it worked, we would never know. But the Church Committee's investigation did produce consequences. The committee's final report, published in April 1976, ran to 6 books. It exposed decades of illegal surveillance, unauthorized assassination programs, domestic spying, mail interception, and drug experiments conducted on American citizens without their knowledge or consent. The revelations were so sweeping that 1975 became known as the Year of Intelligence. On February 18, 1976, President Gerald Ford signed Executive Order 11,905. The order contained a single sentence that changed the rules of American intelligence operations permanently. No employee of the United States government shall engage in or conspire to engage in political assassination. That executive order remains in effect to this day. The Church Committee also led directly to the creation of the Permanent Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, which for the first time established ongoing congressional oversight of CIA, NSA, and FBI operations. Before 1975, these agencies operated with virtually no external accountability. After 1975, they were required, at least in theory, to answer to elected officials. Whether that oversight has been sufficient is a question that Americans continue to debate. But I think the most important part of this story is not the weapon itself. It is what the weapon represents. The heart attack gun was not a failure of a single program or a single agency. It was the logical endpoint of a doctrine that valued deniability above accountability. When your entire operating philosophy is built around the principle that no one should ever be able to prove what you did, you eventually arrive at a weapon designed so that no one can ever prove it was used. And when the people who build that weapon are told to destroy it, they hide it instead. Because the same culture of secrecy that created the weapon also protects the people who disobey orders to destroy it. Mary Embry, the 18-year-old high school graduate who found the poison, was never told what her discovery would be used for. Dr. Nathan Gordon, who built the delivery system, claimed he never received the order to destroy the stockpiles. William Colby, who brought the gun to Congress, would not say whether it had been used. Nobody knew. Nobody was responsible. That was the design. Frank Church spent 2 years trying to impose accountability on organizations that had been built specifically to avoid it. He succeeded in some ways. The executive order banning assassination remains law. The intelligence oversight committees still function. The family jewels are largely declassified, but Church himself would lose his Senate seat in 1980. Swept out by a conservative wave that accused him of weakening American intelligence at a critical moment in the Cold War. He died of pancreatic cancer in 1984 at the age of 59. The heart attack gun disappeared after its single public appearance in 1975. Where it went is unknown. Whether improved versions were developed is unknown. Whether the underlying technology was abandoned or simply reclassified is unknown. What we do know is this. In the 1950s, the KGB built a weapon that could kill a man and make it look like a heart attack. They used it at least twice. Both times, the deaths were initially ruled natural causes. The truth only emerged because the assassin's wife convinced him to confess. In the 1960s, the CIA built its own version, a frozen dart of shellfish toxin launched from an electric pistol, silent, accurate to 100 yards, undetectable by autopsy. The agency stockpiled enough toxin to kill 5,000 people and hid it from the President of the United States. In the 1970s, Congress found out. A senator held the gun up for the cameras. A president signed an order banning assassination. Oversight committees were created. The system was reformed, but the weapon itself was never accounted for. Senator Church called it the most efficient murder instrument he had ever seen. He was right. It was efficient in exactly the way the CIA designed everything to be efficient. It accomplished its purpose and left no evidence behind. Whether that purpose was ever carried out, only the men and women who held that weapon know for certain, and they have never been required to tell.